Welcome to the ExecMBA podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Greg French. Greg is a career coach with our professional degree program's career team, and he and I recently connected to talk more about his background, what led him to Darden, what he enjoys about working with working professional students, his work with the MSBA program, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to the ExecMBA podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. Now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Greg French. Greg, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Brad. I'm excited to be here and share some perspective and insights on my side with careers.
Yeah, I can't believe it's taken us this long to get you on the podcast. I'm so sorry about that. Golly, we gotta talk to our producer.
Understandable. No, time flies, and again, it's good to be here, and it'll be good to get into some discussions today too.
Well, how is everything going? How are you doing?
Yeah, life is good right now. I'm a new dad actually, so outside of work, life stays busy, but no complaints. Life is good, and we're getting into 2026, so truly no complaints. And I'm happy to just kind of be where I'm at in life too, welcoming a new child and progressing into work in my career. So again, thanks for asking.
Well, I'm excited to have you here on the podcast again. It took us a little while, but we're here now. We've had every member of the career team, the career coaches, I should say, on the podcast, and that's really was the inspiration for having you on today. Talk a little bit more about the work that you do, supporting students, what got you here to Darden in the first place, all kinds of things. So, tell us a little bit more about you and your background.
Yeah. So as far as my background, I would say the majority of my tenure and career has been around higher education. For me, I started in admissions, and I worked for a school in Maryland, did undergraduate admissions, and then in the spirit of business school, my undergraduate major was business administration. I worked for a small business. I worked in recruiting for a Fortune 100 company in financial services. And then from there, I actually found myself getting back into higher education. And I've worked at small universities, large universities, public, private. And I would say more specifically with careers, I've been doing that for about 7 or 8 years. And I first worked out in Illinois, and I had an opportunity to get in with just the general career services, and that gave me a taste of it. I got into business career services at another business school, and that kind of led me. I was specifically with the ExecMBA program, and then as I progressed through that, it gave me an opportunity to get into here with the University of Virginia, and it's been just a nice opportunity to continue that pathway. So I think a mix of both industry and education has been a good opportunity to just kind of take this and run with it.
I always, as a somewhat accidental higher education administrator myself, I'm always curious, did you set off down the path knowing that you wanted to work in higher education? Did you stumble into it as an admissions professional? I'm curious.
I would describe myself as a bit of a boomerang with that. Now, boomerang being less so the same company, but just the industry as a whole. For me, I started out just as an undergraduate student worker. I was a student worker at the college I went to, and I had an opportunity to get involved in admissions there. And so that was the experience I had. I just didn't have a ton as an undergraduate graduating. And so I explored that, and I didn't realize how much I liked it until I left it. And like you said, it was a bit of an accidental path. But when I had a time to really reflect on that, which is part of the career journey, which I know we'll get into, I found myself drawn back to the environment, the people, the culture, just the collegial atmosphere at a university. So it was fun to find myself back into it. And like I said, I've been focused in careers, but a good chunk of my time working at universities has been in other parts too, including admissions, like we talked about, but also study abroad, athletics, and a few other routes too. So just a great opportunity to work with students on the whole, and kind of be an influential part and part of their experience, I should say too, which is really what's motivating about it.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear about all the many ways you've interacted with students and touched the student experience during your time in higher ed. What do you enjoy about higher ed?
Yeah, higher ed I would say to kind of build off of that, where we just started. I think the common thread for me working in universities is that it's a place to have an impact on the student experience. And that can happen in a number of different ways, certainly including admissions as they kind of find their path in. But throughout study abroad is a supplemental experience. But then obviously here with my work now and in careers, I really appreciate that idea of students coming in saying like, okay, like let's make the most of this. And careers in a lot of places, business school is probably a little bit different, but in a lot of places, it's not always required. So it's a supplemental piece, but it can have such an impact on that, but especially in business schools. For a lot of the reasons, for many reasons that people want to get into a business school, it's to transform their career. And so for me to be able to have such an impact on that, I find that really motivating, rewarding, energizing, all of the above.
Well, what brought you to Darden? What got you interested in working with us?
Yeah. So Darden was a really unique opportunity for me because, like I said, I worked at a business school before this, and I was exclusively working with the executive MBA program there, and I love that. It was a wonderful experience, and I kind of happened upon the experience here at Darden, and I think the best way I can answer this is what got me motivated and what kept me motivated as I started to look into all the opportunities at Darden. And when I first started down that path, like I said, it was really primarily motivated by the opportunity to expand my responsibilities. At the previous university that I worked with, I was exclusive, like I said, to ExecMBA. Here I work with the executive MBA program, the part-time MBA program, our MS in business analytics. And then I also work with a joint venture with our McIntyre School of Commerce with the Master of Science in the Management of Information Technology, MSMIT. That's a lot easier to say than the full name of the program there. So with that, I work with 4 different programs, which is really a nice way of going about that. So again, it's a way of expanding my responsibilities. But I would say that I love the mindset at Darden, and I didn't realize all of that until I got here, really, and started interviewing, and have of course been on board with the team here for over a year now. And it's innovative. The continuous thing that I come back to here is that we're not afraid to try anything, and I really appreciate that about Darden. And I could see the importance of staying at the forefront with that. And when I interviewed too with Darden, I was fortunate to be here during a residency weekend when students were in the building. And that made a world of a difference too, where I could really see the passion that the students had and just the way that they went about their academics and just the community. And so I was really drawn to that, and it's been a wonderful experience to be on board here too.
Well, it's great to hear about all the students you work with across all these different programs. A lot to keep straight. All these programs are a little different from one another. What do you enjoy about working with working professional students?
Yeah, so working professional students are certainly unique in a number of really, like I said before, rewarding ways. So one, I think if I think about it through the lens of a career standpoint here, working professional students have a lot of flexibility in the way they want to direct their career. So some of them come in from day one and say, I'm ready to make a switch, or I'm really looking to climb within my current organization, essentially immediately. And the opportunities here with a working professional program allow students to do that. Their work and their academics kind of go hand in hand and happen in parallel. So with that in mind, there's immense variety. We're working with working professional students there here. And so I really, really love that because even if I'm working with somebody from the same industry, even the same company for that matter, it's a unique experience. Everybody is bringing different things to the table, and everybody has a little bit of a personal agenda too. So, and I say that in a really good way because if they're saying like, "Hey, I want to advance in this way," or "I want to advance in a different way," there are opportunities to do that. And I also like the fact that they can take their academics and apply it to their career, and they can apply their career to their academics too. So that goes hand in hand, also in parallel. So one, if they're bringing experience to the table, I love that variety. Like I started with too. I think that's a really unique way to work with our students. And then for me too, it keeps me on my toes. I really enjoy kind of the way that it's not always as cyclical as a lot of programs might be. So again, students might have different timelines, different needs, different agendas. They might be switchers, they might be climbers, they might be entrepreneurs. And if they're deeper in their career versus earlier in their career, there's a lot of different layers to that. So again, it adds a lot of nuances in a really fun way, and it gives us as a team of careers interesting ways to stay on top of the different industries and bring alumni to them, and in ways that they can really enhance their careers in positive ways. So, yeah, I would say the variety. If I boiled it down to one word, variety, and the uniqueness of that, I think is, like I said before, really rewarding to see.
It's interesting to hear you say that. We had a conversation recently about the professional advancement course with Jim Collins and Jennifer Windus, and we asked them what do they enjoy about their jobs, and they said the variety, the fact that no two students are exactly alike. Everybody's career plan's just a little bit different. Their timing's a little bit different. What they want to do, where they're coming from. It's this diversity, this variety. I think that keeps things interesting for folks who do what you do. So I thought
Mhm.
that was interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's unique to hear from me too, because we didn't plan that. But I agree. I think that that's the cool part of it is when you can work with two different students that might have a very similar career path but look very different in the way that they're taking their career. Um, that's a really cool thing, and they may have different ideas of what's the job after the job, in terms of the way they want to take their career direction. So just because somebody looks similar on paper, there's always different layers to peel back. So yeah, I'm with you on that in terms of the variety, kind of really adding some meaning to the experience there.
So I'm curious, Greg, you were a working professional student yourself, right? As you were completing your doctorate, is that right?
Yes, yeah, yeah. So I would say I've gained two new titles in the past 12 months. One being dad, like I said, welcomed a new child about 4 weeks ago. But yeah, about let's see, 9-ish months ago or so, I graduated with my PhD, and it's a long journey, and so I can really empathize with what it takes to balance work life. Again, like I said, everyone has personal obligations. Everybody has their own career that they're balancing, and everybody has academics when you're in a working professional program. And then on top of that, it's like I said, that's where we come in. After that, then careers comes into play. But yeah, I finished my PhD. It's in higher education administration. And I've most specifically looked at student motivation. And motivation is one area that I could really comment on as well too, in terms of ways that students go about their careers. So yeah, it's been really interesting, I would say, when I speak about our students in terms of like how they can take what they apply in the classroom and in their careers and vice versa. I could think about that myself too, in terms of like, what am I studying? What am I researching? What am I seeing in the findings? And how can I see how that plays out with our graduate students as well? So yes, yeah, thank you for the note on that too. It's rewarding to graduate and be done on my side too, and see how that can continue to progress on my side.
Yeah, well, it's cool that you have a PhD. It's interesting to hear about your work and what you studied, and I do think it does give you a little bit of a frame of reference on what the students are going through as they're balancing all of these things or trying to juggle. It's probably the better verb. All of these things that are competing for their time and attention. One of the things that's true for working professional students when it comes to careers is it can sometimes be hard to find time for your career process, right? It's effectively like having another class, particularly when things get really busy. Let's say you're doing a lot of information networking or you're getting ready to apply for jobs. Do you have any tips or strategies for students as they think about finding time for their career process?
Yeah. So, yes, at the risk of being slightly repetitive, I'll kind of recap a touch of what I just said, and then build on that. So, it is so interesting to think about how careers can often maybe just get pushed down the road a week later, a month later, and that can continually happen because, like we talked about, we all or most students have a career that they're balancing already while pursuing number two, their academics. And then, as mentioned, everybody has some sort of personal obligation that goes on in their life that they do for fun, or just the personal life that they lead. So those three things are big priorities for the vast majority of our students. And then on top of that, like we talked about, then we're adding in careers and making some sort of a change or a pivot or an advancement, any combination of that. So the way I tend to think about that is I would really say kind of three main things. One, be intentional. Two, make it manageable. And three, never feel like you need to go it alone. So to give some detail to that, when I say like be intentional, I think it's really important. One of the best pieces of advice I can give to students is really think about your future self in terms of what are you really looking for? I previewed this before, but what's the job after the job? Like, what are you really looking to get at? And so I think being hyper focused in terms of this is what I want, this is what I want out of my career, this is what I'm motivated to do. That is it's easy to say, hard to do. But really thinking about that and gaining that clarity, I think, is important. Making it manageable, I would say a lot of times people will hit an inflection point where they're ready to really take the bull by the horns. And once they do that, it can be easy to say, let me go 100% all in all at once. And in a lot of cases, that's possible, but in a lot of other cases, that isn't as manageable. So I would say pace yourself accordingly, set various checkpoints and goals, things like that. And then lastly, I would say don't go it alone. One, our team is here. We're here to support either talking through it in the coaching form, but in addition to that, that might also take a form of like what's actionable, like where can we go about that. But I would say for any student that's in business school, talk to your classmates. That I would say this takes the form of both exploration and networking, but they go hand in hand. So if we have exploration, that can start just with what are your classmates doing, and then on the other side too is like if we can expand beyond that, talk to the people in the industries that we're interested in, or functional titles that we're looking for. Those are ways to really make that more actionable. Because a lot of times, if we're looking at just a blank question mark, it's really hard to decide what's the first action to take there. But talking about it, finding clarity, kind of making it manageable, and then knowing that we don't have to be alone in this process are probably my biggest ways of breaking it down and simplifying that for students.
Yeah, my conversation with Jim and Jennifer, I talked. Jim made a point about the importance of being curious and how important curiosity is to the career process. And it struck me hearing him talk about that so much of this begins just with asking questions of yourself, of other people. Curiosity is kind of the root of it all.
Yeah, I think that. So I agree with that fully, and I do think that's a nice way of reframing kind of that idea of be intentional and find clarity. Because by being curious, that will, in theory, hopefully, right, lead to that idea of clarity. By asking questions, and I a lot of times will use the metaphor of a funnel. If we can start broad, we ultimately want to continue to narrow a funnel so that we're focused on what's going to be most important. But at any given point, we want to roll things in. We do want to roll things out, but we want to roll things in so that we can continue to narrow that funnel and be intentional about that, and find that clarity. But yeah, it starts with being curious. So that's a good foundational place to start on the career journey for sure.
Greg, I know you work really closely with our MS in Business Analytics students, MSBA, as it's known here at UVA. This is a partner program between the Darden School of Business as well as the McIntyre School of Commerce, unique amongst UVA's master's programs in that it's a true partnership rather than some program that requires you to take a class at McIntyre and a class at Darden. It is a curriculum that's been developed specifically for students by faculty from both schools, and a really, really cool and interesting program. You work with these students on their career journeys. What do you enjoy about working with MSBA students?
Yeah, actually, to piggyback off of that point, that is actually a lot of what I like about the MSBA program is that it's so unique. It is that partnership between the McIntyre School of Commerce and then the Darden School of Business. And so the students there have such an interesting opportunity to work with faculty across both of those. And the way the program is designed, it's so hands-on. It's actually it has a pretty big tech stack. And a lot of students will pursue this because they are interested in expanding their technical skills and in tandem, their business acumen and being able to just translate business insights or data into business insights. And I think that's a really unique part of that program where you have people that are technically minded and business minded. And I love that. I really enjoy working with those types of people that like both sides of that. That takes a very unique student that can kind of really straddle that line between the technical side and the business side, working with people and data on both sides. So that's one side. And then I would say that it's a 1 year program. So because it's such a quick program and it's hands-on, that also attracts a unique type of student that's usually very eager and wants to get the most out of that and really wants to make sure they're being proactive on all different sides with that. So yeah, I would say the uniqueness of the business analytics program is also part of what I enjoy about it too. And I work with the MSBA program. I would say it's a decent mix of students that have never worked with analytics at all in the past, hence a motivation to start the program, and some that want to deepen that experience. And so again, same thing. If we go back to the idea of variety, that's there within the MSBA program too. And for students that or prospective students that might be listening and thinking about that program, I would say you'd be in good company, no matter what route you're coming from. And I think from our side on the careers, when we can work with students from both sides, we can help on all of that. And what I like about that is they are so project heavy in terms of what they're doing in the program. And so we get to really help them translate that in terms of how's that going to show up in your story? How's that going to show up in the way you talk about it in interviews? How's that going to show up on your resume? So I'm here to help with that side. And that part is really fun. And it's a really cool way to add impact to their experience because they have it in the classroom, but now it's like, let me take that out of the classroom and put it into the workplace and put it into my professional journey. So yeah, I would say fun is what I take from that and what I really enjoy about working with those MSBA students too.
That's really cool to hear how you take the sort of project-based curriculum, the fact that it's 5 modules across 12 months of the program, each module culminates in a project. It's really cool to hear how you work with the students to translate those projects to their career story and how those projects give them things to talk about with a prospective employer that they're engaging with. You know, they've used these tools, they've used them to solve a problem. They can do this because they've done a project. And let me tell you about this project. That's very cool.
Yeah, I think that's truly, I would say, one of the most motivating parts for the students. And again, if a student has a pretty hands-on tech background already, this is a supplement to that. But for the other students that don't have any sort of technical background, this is a really unique way to build literal experience that they can put on their resume, talk about in interviews, and really show off in terms of I have these skills and I have proof of knowing these skills. So yeah, I think that's a unique part of the program. It's a nice way where they can really take something tangible from that program. And like I said, from our perspective too, with careers, that's where we can really provide that value in terms of like, let's make the most of this. If you have that, let's maximize it. Let's really show it off in the right ways. Let's show those technical skills that you have. Let's think about how we want to frame that in terms of the role that you're applying it to, things like that. So yeah, totally agree. It's a nice way of making sure that we're helping students in the right way for the types of roles that they're looking for.
And those projects, the what you're learning as you go through the modules, obviously that changes. It becomes increasingly complex as you go through the program. To by the time you get to module 5, you actually source your own project. It's a capstone module. The students have a chance to kind of pick their own team, choose a project. Obviously, it's with faculty oversight. The faculty get the submissions from the students. They ultimately sign off on the various projects. But it's a really cool module in that students can go out there and maybe find a company or find something within their own company where they have access to data, a problem to potentially solve, and work on it. That to me, I love seeing the list of employers or companies that the students work with because it's such a wide and varied list.
Yeah, to add on to the uniqueness of that, we see small businesses, we see multinational organizations that students have worked with that have worldwide presence, and yeah, I think as long as a company has data, and we live in 2026, so every company does, they're eligible. And so finding the companies that are willing to share their data and essentially get real life opportunities for students to apply that is cool. And in a way, it works almost as a consulting project because they're taking data that a company works with and helping them solve a problem or at least an insight, build insights on what they have with that data, how to use that data effectively, how to visualize that data to make sense of it so that it can be more presentable to executive leaders. And I think that's exactly to your point too. It starts with a conversation. It's not just like here's a spreadsheet, go do something with it. They're talking to the businesses, they're talking to the employers. So it's beyond just the technical skills, which absolutely is the foundation of that. But it goes into what are the communication skills that you're using, what are the problem solving skills that you're using, what are the presentation skills that you have, because ultimately that does culminate in a presentation to the actual representatives from that company. And so that's such a cool part. And I think, genuinely speaking, that is probably what most students kind of find the most satisfying, is because it's such a big project. So it's really challenging, but at the same time, the challenge is the reward. So when you can go through something like that and truly have something to present, some data and business insights at the end of that, it can be kind of a highlight or an exclamation point on the end of a student's MSBA career.
Yeah, one of the things that you just said really resonated with me as we talk with alumni from the MSBA program. When they talk about the skill set that they gained and the skills that maybe they found the most helpful, oftentimes it is that storytelling with data piece. It's not only being able to do the technical piece to make sense of the data, it's then being able to communicate to various stakeholders why this matters, what we should do about it, and socialize these things. Because you did a really great job of explaining that this is not just a purely technical program, right? There's a lot of tech in it, but there's also business, and there's a big communication component because how you communicate matters a great deal.
Yeah, no, yeah, you hit the nail on the head, and that's something that, frankly, I didn't realize before I started working with this program. I had a really strong idea of what the program is all about, of course, but there's so many different layers to that too. And I think as students explore a program like this, they can see that where, again, it draws students that straddle that line between I'm a technically minded person and I have the skill sets to run the numbers and visualize that, work with R, Python, Tableau, Power BI, and everything in between. But now I can actually use this. I have the presentation skills. I have the communication skills where I can actually go into a boardroom and talk to a C-suite executive and tell them what makes sense with this data, how we can apply it, how we can use it. So again, it's a lot of strategy, a lot of problem solving, and a lot of communication that goes into that too. And it's not just theory. Each module, culminating, of course, in their capstone, they're doing some sort of project and presentation. And so that can be a little scary. I get that, but that's where the growth happens. And so I think that's the most important part of it too, is the growth throughout the program. So a lot happens in 12 months for that program.
Yeah, I appreciate the point about the presentation because we actually had conversations with current students, alumni who will tell you that they came to the program because of the presentation component. They knew that wasn't a strength for them, that it was an area they wanted to grow, and a lot more comfortable doing that growth in an educational setting than live at work, where you don't necessarily have the same opportunity for feedback. And, you're not necessarily getting to hear from people like Anthony Palumba about, storytelling with data and all this kind of stuff. He's a faculty member who teaches in the MSBA program, in case you're wondering who that person is. But you have a chance to learn kind of best practices and best principles and apply that to your presentation. So I think that's an appeal for a lot of students too.
Yeah, and so that makes me think of an interesting part of like how careers comes into play with that too. And I think to your point, you gain constructive feedback and you really get some insights in terms of like, is the impact of what you are trying to convey or the intent of what you're trying to convey truly the impact that is had over here? And with that in mind, our team will do that as well too. So like, yes, they're doing that in the classroom with their projects, with the analytics types of work that they're going to be doing throughout the 12 months. But then ultimately, a lot of students are thinking about whether it be a promotion internally, if they're a climber, or if there's some sort of switcher and want to look at a new organization, new function, new industry, so on and so forth. How do we apply that? And so presenting to a stakeholder or an employer is a lot different than maybe talking about it in an interview. So we do a lot of that too, in terms of like, how can we provide feedback through mock interviews, or just talking through something like, tell me about yourself. Why are you interested in this role? Why are you interested in this company? The more predictable questions, but also the behavioral questions. And then, are you going to have a case interview as a part of that too? We can give feedback on that side too. So there's a lot of constructive pieces that happen both in the classroom, but then as a supplement to the classroom through our career side too, that really, again, go parallel and hand in hand as they go through the program and build on that and continue to apply that ultimately into the workforce.
Well, I'm curious, Greg, you talked a little bit about how you work with students. Any other resources that are available to MSBA students that you would want to highlight in particular here, or any particular things you do with MSBA students to help them as they explore different career possibilities?
Sure. Yeah, no, great question. And I think if we zoom out a little bit and we can kind of look at that as on the whole here. And So my title, executive coach of professional degree programs, I would say that's a foundational piece, coaching. And so our team is always here for availability around coaching. And coaching can take the form of a number of different things. If it's exploration, if it's true applications, if it's more marketing materials, let's look at your resume, your LinkedIn, make sure it's representing you in the best way possible. If it's preparing for an interview, all the way through the process into negotiations and so on and so forth. So coaching can mean so many different things to so many different students, which is why it's fun. Again, we go back to that common theme of variety. So coaching is there from day one, and students have that opportunity. Our team also puts on a variety of workshops throughout the year. Some past topics that we've covered certainly include a lot of topics that we cover in coaching too, but they end up taking very different forms when it's one-on-one coaching versus a workshop. So same thing, like resumes, LinkedIn, networking, interview preparation. Those are all themes that we would cover in workshops. We do hear often that students really appreciate that opportunity to connect with alumni. So throughout the year, we are actually literally in the process right now of organizing a panel for our students, but we'll organize panels or different alumni types of events where alumni can come and share their experiences. And that functions for a couple different reasons. One, networking. Two, exploration. A lot of times for students, we don't know what we don't know. So that can be a good way of uncovering what alums have done in the past and what might be inspiring to current students. And then I would say an even bigger extension of that too is we have an annual industry trek where we will go to companies in the DC area and visit their actual location and hear from people, often alums as well, but often not, people that are in the industry applying analytics to different companies. Last year, we went to 5 different companies over the course of 2 days. Just to explore, and it was part of a actual academic credit, and they could reflect on that, what they're taking away from that, what they want to do with that moving forward. So actually, hands-on experiences, I think are important too. So combining theory with practice in a number of different ways. But yeah, that mix of coaching, workshops, alumni engagement, getting out into the field, out of the classroom, into the company sites, things like that. All ways to kind of combine what we can offer as a career team here.
Yeah, that's a lot. The treks in particular are really cool to see the pictures of all the students going to visit these companies. And there's so much that's possible here in the DC area when you think about all the companies that do work that might be of interest to students in a data analytics, the business analytics program. There's just quite a bit. I'm curious, Greg, how would you categorize career aspirations of MSBA students? We started this conversation talking a lot about variety. How would you describe their career aspirations?
Yeah, so MSBA students, I can kind of build off of what we started with too, in terms of people combining a technical background with business acumen, and that is somewhat tangible but somewhat vague at the same time too. And so, if I was to boil that down, a lot of people do have those technical skills, and that's part of their motivation to gain or to join this program and to go through it, so they can gain those technical skills and leverage that in some form. Let me zoom out a touch here too and note that we do have a mix of people that are looking to climb within their organization, get promoted and take on those different opportunities. We also have a mix of people that are looking to make drastic switches. Again, that can be one or multiple different avenues, whether it be a title, an advance at a new company, change industries, change functions. Those would all be kind of bracketed into a group of people that are looking to make a transformative switch of some kind. And then on occasion, this is a little bit less common, but we do have people that are looking at more entrepreneurial ventures too. So that part right there, I think, can take a variety of different forms too. But in general, we see people that are looking for usually a data or business analytics type of role. That can be that can be applied across a few different forms here too. Consulting is a popular path. We see people in marketing. We see people in operations, and we see people at a mix of big companies and small companies across the board. But I would say most often I see people looking at like a business analytics or a data analytics type of role where they can truly take data, raw data, make sense of it, and use it into or put it into actual application there. And that can be across industries and functions as well, like we talked about.
Yeah, so lots of different kinds of career paths is
Yeah.
what I'm hearing from you.
Yep, the opportunities are endless over here, and I think if we go back to what we started with too, it depends on the student. And I would say if a student has an interest in one or multiple different avenues, that goes back to what we talked about before. It's a good idea to go through that exploration phase, be curious a little bit, explore what's out there, find what types of companies you're going to connect with, whether it be big companies, small companies, the types of people that are in those. Like what do they enjoy about that work? What do you connect with about what they enjoy about that work? And so, kind of finding that different path, I think, is going to be unique for various students and a good opportunity to kind of think about how you can take that. Because again, what's cool about business analytics or data analytics is it is omnipresent. Almost any company in any industry is going to have some arm of data or business analytics. And that's only increasing right now too. And so how can we apply that and how do you want to apply that? I think is a big part of that exploration phase too.
Well, Greg, you've shared a lot here today. I wonder if you have a final piece of advice, a tip you might share with our listeners who are thinking about going back to school, doing a graduate program, either a specialized master's like the MSBA program, maybe an MBA program, something you would encourage them to think about as they think about their career journeys.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to an idea that we talked about about myself too. So I went through a program as a working professional and pursued my degree. And so I would encourage people to really think about what's your motivation. And I view that kind of in three buckets here. So motivation, I would say, can be the proactive or reactive. If you're thinking about what do you want to do, you might be saying like, I need to take this step, or you might be in a position where you're like, I need an advanced degree to continue to advance my education. Both are completely acceptable. But really think about like what do I want to get out of the program and why am I pursuing this? Long term and short term. That's a different form of motivation as well, and both can be acceptable parts of that too. So think about like what am I looking to get out of the short term, but ultimately what's, again, like we talked about, what's the job after the job and what do I want to gain long term. And then I really think it's important to find like what's the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, because when you think about like your career steps here, the extrinsic motivation has to be a part of it. Like what's the reward you're going to get out of it, whether it be a promotion or the salary you're looking for, but that intrinsic piece has to be there too. So what do you genuinely find to be interesting in the work that you do? And so I would encourage anyone to really think about your motivation and like what's going to be motivating, not to be repetitive, but what's going to be motivating in your career. And then I would, if we build off of that, I think it's really important for people to spend time just mapping out what that looks like. Because without that plan, it makes it hard to take action. And then we've talked about exploration a lot as well too, but I would say that's encouraged, and start small with that too. And with that, I think there's one caveat or qualifier that I would give with that too, is really trying to avoid comparison, because it's so easy to say like, okay, this person's doing this, that sounds really cool, or I saw this on LinkedIn and they sound like they're doing a really good job there. Maybe I should do that. And in some ways that can be inspiring. And so that's where we can really harness it in a good way. But sometimes that can be a little dangerous too, because I think if we look at that comparison and don't find the intrinsic motivation there, then it's important to just really recognize that and make sure that we're intentional about those steps there too. So again, to kind of boil it down and kind of bring that back, make sure the motivation is understood, whether it be proactive or long-term versus short-term or intrinsic versus extrinsic. Spending time really planning that out in thoughtful ways, which we are a part of. Our careers team is here to support that. And then really think about the exploration. I think that's going to be important to continue to start broad with that funnel metaphor so that we can narrow it and really focus it in the right ways. So you maybe asked for one tip, but there's a few different tips that all kind of go hand in hand as they work together on that too.
We'll always take more than one piece of advice here at the end. So Greg, thank you so much for your time today. It's great chatting with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I look forward to doing it again sometime too. And I appreciate the opportunity to share perspective.
And that was my conversation with Greg French, career coach with our professional degree program career team here at the Darden School of Business. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at exec, that's EXEC, MBA at darden.virginia.edu. Till next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.